Hi, and thanks so much for joining us for Online Church with Fort Alliance. I'm Pastor Ashley, and I'm so excited to welcome you here today. We have a great service planned. We're going to be talking about God as our Father and talking about how much He loves and cares for us and how He will pick us up and how He will wrap us in His arms when we feel abandoned and when we feel lost. We're really looking forward to that. Before we dive in, want to give a couple of quick updates. We're still working on our church directory. We would love for you to be a part of that. So if you haven't already, please go to our website, fortsaskalliance.com, and on our main page, you'll see a scrolling banner to sign up for the directory. So head on over to there, and you can fill in the information. There's incentive for you to do this. Not only can we then be in contact, reach out, see how you're doing, stay connected, but we're also going to enter everyone in for a chance to win a $100 Amazon gift card. And so make sure that you do that if you haven't already, that you do that today. I'm so excited about something else that we have coming up. On February the 5th from 9 to 11, we're having two guest speakers here at the church, and we are going to be talking about sex, our brokenness, and the soul. This is going to be a time where we're going to gather and just be really open and honest and talk about how we are broken people who need a Savior in every area of our lives, our sexuality included. And we're really looking forward to our guest speakers, Daniel and Tanya Kamori. They're going to talk about their journey. We're going to talk specifically about pornography addiction, and the havoc that can wreak in our lives, but also the deliverance and healing that Jesus has for us. And so they're going to be here speaking for us in the Sunday service on February the 6th. But on February the 5th, which is a Saturday here at the church, we're going to be doing a workshop. There's going to be a teaching time, and then we'll split off, men and women, to have a Q&A and to discuss some more in our own groups. So again, that is Saturday, February the 5th from 9 to 11 here at Fort Alliance. Please make time for that. I cannot stress how crucially important that is, and we look forward to seeing you there. Before we jump in to our service, before we hear from LaRonn today, we're going to take a moment and we're going to bow in prayer. So please, wherever you are, just take a moment and quiet your heart before our great God, and let's bow together. Heavenly Father, we come before you, God, grateful for who you are, that you are a father. Lord, and so often we see such poor examples of fatherhood here on earth. We've been hurt, we've been abandoned, we've been wounded. But Lord, you are just a perfect and gracious Heavenly Father who longs to scoop your kids up into your arms, to show them how much you love them, to show them how much you care, and to provide healing for every aspect of who they are. So I pray, Jesus, that as we hear this message today, that you will be moving by your Holy Spirit. Lord, that you would be speaking to hearts where that needs to happen, that you be soothing souls where that needs to happen, that you be quickening spirits where that needs to happen, God. We give this time to you. I pray a blessing on everyone who's listening and watching right now. And I thank you, God, that you know them, that you see them right where they are, whatever room they find themselves. God, you see them right where they are, and you love them and you know them, and you are enough for them. We praise you for these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
He is Jesus, and he has overcome, and we believe to the core of our being that He wants to walk with you and help you in your overcome story. And we've been in this series sharing testimony of overcome stories because we really want to press into the tough topics, the difficult subjects, and just see how Jesus has worked and moved as a means to give him honor and glory and to help us, just be encouraged to press in and to be that overcomer that we really are deep within with his power able to do and able to be. And so I have one of my best friends with me today, LaRonn, and I'm really excited to introduce you guys to him. Some of them, this might ring a bell, might have a little bit of a glimpse into your story already because you gave me permission to use part of your story in my Christmas Eve message, actually. I was talking about Isaiah 9 and names of Jesus in regards to that passage, and one was Everlasting Father. And so if you were watching our Christmas Eve or part of our services, I was talking about you in that moment. So maybe that'll kind of put that together. But we met back in 1996.
Yeah. It's a while ago.
A little while ago.
VHSs were around.
There was a lot of things different in the world in 1996. And I went down to do a short-term kind of missions crew at a camp for youth that are from inner city neighborhoods in Central California.
Right.
And I went to do maintenance and dishes, and then they had some issues with some folks that you were in a cabin with, and they were like, hey, that guy from Canada, he might be able to help. And so that was our meeting, man, and here we are years later.
Yeah, it's been absolutely phenomenal. Everything is on purpose.
Yeah, it's actually something that kind of blows my mind, how you can meet someone in Central California, your stories can connect, and then they get interwoven years and years later, and here we are today, right? That's pretty cool.
It's the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah.
I agree.
We're here to tell a story today about abandonment, the significance of legacy, and ultimately Jesus all the way through both those things.
Yeah.
And nonetheless, life in Fort Saskatchewan is a little different than life in the neighborhood of Central California, if you will. And so let's start there. Let's take a moment to just kind of establish, where you grew up, your family, significant influences, your home. Let's go back to the origin story. Tell us about Lil LaRonn.
Well, still little LaRonn is next to you. Growing up in the east side of San Jose, California, definitely wasn't the California that most people want to visit. It's definitely not golden streets and palm trees or anything like that. They would call it the inner city. Back home we would call it the hood. That's just what it was. But I grew up in a house. It was 12 of us in a 2-bedroom apartment, and it was you always had love was around, always around. And so it was me, my mom, and my brother, a few of my aunts, their kids, and my grandmother and grandpa, Pop. And but he was the only man in the house. In growing up in that tough neighborhood, you see a lot of things early. You get exposed to a lot of things early: drugs, alcohol, prostitution. Murder. I've seen a lot of stuff that, I wish I had never seen. But that was kind of what I was kind of just plopped into. And that like you said, the origins. It's the start, but it's definitely not the finish.
Yep. You have an incredible mom, so I want to make sure I highlight that.
Yeah.
And we're going to touch on her a couple times in this story. And so none of this in any way, shape, or form is a diss about your mom, ever.
Never.
She's a powerhouse woman of faith.
Yes,
all right?
she is.
So I wanted to be real clear about that.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, pretty early on, you realize, Grandpa was the only man in the house. When did that kind of sink in? When did you realize that Grandpa's the only man? And Like, what happened around that story?
Well, growing up, when you kind of are around your environment, you get used to what you used to. And so just knowing that Grandpa was Dad, that's what we called him. You know, he was Dad. Everyone called him Dad. And so as I grew up and as I got a little bit older, you start to go to other people's house. You know, you go to your friend's house and you recognize that there's a man and a woman in the house and it's just the kids. And you're like, oh, that's not the same as my house. Something's different.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember very vividly sitting in a car with my mom, and we're driving. My brother's in the front seat, and I'm in the back seat. And I just asked Mom, where's my dad? Who's my dad? And right there, I just started seeing, like, the tears just come rushing down her face. And my brother, you know, he kind of, like, had his head down, and he would look at my mom from time to time, but she didn't have an answer for me. And right then, you feel like, was I not lovable? Was I not worthy? Mm-hmm. Was I not capable of being loved? I didn't know what I was. So, you know, you feel that hole in your heart. And there's something that I read. It said that every man has a hole in his heart in the figure of his father. And that's where there was a gap. Mm-hmm. That's where I found out that there was a big gap.
Yep. Your mom was pretty strategic. She knew the neighborhood you were in, mm-hmm. and she wanted to take you to a school outside that neighborhood.
She did.
You had a pretty significant moment as an elementary student at the school your mom would take you to. Talk to us about that story.
Well, that was I was very, very blessed to have a mom that would do things that, not just do things that were comfortable. Like, you know what I mean? It's like she would go out of her way to do anything for her boys. I know we have tons of moms like out there, like my wife is like that as well. She will go out of her way. I mean, we're her cubs, you know. So mama's always around. Mama Bear is always around. And but I remember there was a very specific moment in the second grade. You remember those moments where, like, you don't know why you remember that moment, but it was that moment that kind of like twitched and something snapped. And it was I don't know if you guys had a, like, bring your dads to school day or take your kid to work day type of thing. Well, it was when I went to school that day, I dreaded it all day long. I didn't want to be there. I was trying to find a way to, like, hide, basically. And we're in school, and I'm seeing kids, like, being with their dads and hanging out, and their fathers are just kind of, like, just kidding with their sons and playing with their daughters. And I was just kind of, like, just there, frustrated, sad, wondering, you know, you always have that question in your mind, where's mine, where's mine, where's mine? And I remember going out to recess and seeing all the parents and all the dads playing tetherball and kickball and basketball and throwing footballs around and just weeping, just like one of those uncontrollable weeps, like one of those good cries. And I was just hoping someone would just grab me from behind and be like, I got you, you know? And so I remember very vividly looking up and just saying, God, if you've given me the opportunity to be a dad, I'm going to be the best one ever. Like, and right there was like the spark of my dream. That was like my first dream. Well, other kids in my neighborhood wanted to be a basketball player, a football player, or something like that. We didn't really play a lot of hockey. But my first dream was to be a dad. That was my dream. As a 8-year-old. Pretty weird, but that was mine.
Yeah,
it was mine.
Hey, so that's elementary. Let's fast track this. We get to those teenage years, junior high and such, and life gets, real messy, if you will. Talk us through life as a teenager now. Junior high, like what was that like? How did things go?
Well, junior high was everything gets elevated in junior high. Uh, girls are turning into young ladies, and mom is all of a sudden not the most prettiest lady you've ever seen before in your life.
Yeah.
Things changed.
Yeah.
But in my neighborhood, everything elevated. Talking about sex, pornography, drugs, alcohol. You start to see a lot of gang affiliation, which is essentially young boys and girls looking for somewhere to feel like they could fit in, someone that like have their back, someone that they feel like that's where love is, and it's completely wrong. But I remember being in situations where I would be, with some of my friends, at their places and things like that had fathers, but they weren't good. They weren't the best fathers. I remember vividly one time in particular, at a friend's house, and the doors kicked in, and screaming, shouting, and a friend of mine just grabbed me and brought me into his room, and we hid under his bed while we watched his dad beat his mom, with everything in my body that wants to like grab a bat, something, like do something, but to a kid, it's like you're petrified. You're paralyzed, and right there, and you start to figure out not every dad is a good dad, and everyone got their situations, and everyone has their issues. And so my energy and my focus went to sports, but it went overboard. I started to worship sports. I started to worship basketball and football and things like that till my priorities slipped and they fell off. And I remember getting back then, we would cut school all the time, like clockwork. Like after lunch, where's LaRonn? He ain't here. But back then it was a little easier to get away with stuff, Now you get in trouble, your mom gets a text message.
Yeah. There's a good thing of technology.
That is, yes. But back then, you run home, you delete that message on the answering machine.
Yeah.
But I heard my mom got a letter in the 8th grade, because back there, 6th, 7th, 8th is junior high. And mom getting a letter saying that I won't be graduating. Cut classes, missed school too much. Didn't finish any of my work, and things like that. So if you don't finish the work, you don't get to cross. You don't get to graduate, and that was a really, really low place for me. Already feeling abandoned, now I felt stupid, useless, worthless, foolish. Stuff will come into my head. Well, why would anybody want to be my dad with the stuff that I'm doing? Yeah. And so yeah, it just sunk me into a lower than low. So it was that was tough.
I know your mom, and she's like I already said, a strong woman of faith, and I got no doubt she spent probably hours in her prayer chair.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Yeah. But practically speaking, she needed to press into this with you. What did she do? How did you guys kind of navigate this reality of, not going to graduate junior high, recognizing how you're feeling? What did you guys do? Where did you go for help?
Well, I remember sitting at that table with my mom and just reading the letter, and she was just kind of like, I don't know what to do. And she would, and I remember saying, Mom, maybe, like, is there like a military school to put me in, to like whip me into shape? Because it was then I know I needed a man to be there right beside me, like put me under his wing and say, I'm gonna help you out. We need to get things straightened out. But up until like being like 12, 13 years old, you didn't really have that. You didn't have that structure. You didn't have that discipline. You didn't have that dad that would look at you and go, boy, you know? And you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. Boy, that's like a lecture right there. Like, you know exactly what to do, get yourself straight. But it was really, really amazing because my mom, like I said, she would go out of her way to make sure that, you know, I would try to get on the straight and narrow in some way, shape, or form. So she would look through church. She tried to do a lot of different things for like youth pastors to reach out to me and sit down with me, and which was great. And she came across a gentleman named Jeff Hurd, and he was a militant man.
Talk to us about him.
Oh man, everything that came out of his mouth was like fact. Like it was like straight. There was no like fluff.
Yeah.
You know, like moms nurture. You know, they're good at that. This man, no sense of it.
Okay, so I know that Jeff ran a program. Tell us about the program he ran.
Well, that program was, to me, that was his way of loving people, because he had this program called Boys to Men, not the singing group. He had this program called Boys to Men, and basically we would go there every single Saturday morning, me and my brother, and there was maybe like 10 to 20 kids that would show up, and he would teach us, like face-to-face, lessons and what it is to be a real man, what a real man does, what a real man acts like, what a real man dresses like. You know, back then, you know, guys would be like sagging their pants thinking it's cool and stuff like that, you know. If you ever saw that.
I've seen those pictures of
yes,
you,
you
man.
have. Yeah. That was before I had counsel in my life. But if he saw stuff like that, he would help a lot of these single parent kids kind of like show them and be a father figure and be like fill in the gap. And it was like the coolest thing that I've ever been a part of. So it was every Saturday, 10 o'clock in the morning. It wasn't just for the month of December or just for spring. It was year round, like clockwork. If we show up late, 50 push-ups.
Yep.
If we get out of line, 50 push-ups.
Yeah.
You know, 13-year-olds don't know how to do 50 push-ups straight. Like I do now.
I could just see you.
You know, that kind of stuff. But
Yep. What was something that Jeff used specifically to transfer the knowledge of being a man?
well, he gave us instructions. It's called the "I am a real man" affirmation. And so when we would get together before he teaches, we would all stand up, and all the boys, all the young men would stand in a big half circle, and we would stand up and we would say this affirmation, and it goes, a real man humbles himself under the hands of the Almighty God. A real man takes responsibility for himself and his family. A real man is a man that others can depend on. A real man knows the difference between making a baby and taking care of one. A real man stands for the truth and what is right. A real man does not give in to peer pressure. A real man is a responsible, respectful, dependable, godly man. I am a real man. And
what happens if you messed up saying that?
Oh, man.
50 push-ups?
50 push-ups on site. Because he would just randomly come up to you and be like, what's the third one? And like, if you didn't know it, hit it. And so he gave us a little bit of time to like memorize it, about a month. But if you didn't know it, hit it.
Nice. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's fast forward your story. Now to you as an older teenager, maybe early 20s even. You met your now wife, but at that point she was your girlfriend. Tell us how you guys met. Tell us about your guys' story, and tell us that part of your journey.
Well, that story, that part of our lives, I just graduated high school. I was excited because I graduated something this time.
There you go, man.
And so graduated high school, and that's where I first met my soon-to-be, hopefully, girlfriend. trying to impress her with my basketball skills at Camp Maymac where you and I met.
Yeah, man.
And none of it worked. and turned me down a bunch of times after asking her out, and just like any, persevering young man, I stole her phone number from the camp directory.
Got to do what you got to do.
You got to do what you got to do. Perseverance always works. Remember that, kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, and she came back to camp a couple years later, and in between that time, we would talk, we would have conversation, and we became best friends. But when she came back, it was kind of like an ultimatum. It's like, you could come back as long as you don't have a boyfriend. And then she said, same with you, but you can't have a girlfriend. I was like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
But I didn't really care about boyfriend and girlfriend stuff because I never really saw a successful relationship in the first place. So I never really cared about having a girlfriend or like having that like, he's my this or she's my that. Like that was never a thing for me. So I was like, cool, that's easy. But when she came back, we fell madly in lust. Madly in lust. And that lust led to pregnancy. Outside of wedlock, it led us to be pregnant, and that was another blow. But the first person I walked to and I had a conversation with was my mom, because she's been in this scenario before.
Yep.
And I remember sitting down with her, and she just gave me looked me square in the eye. She didn't like put her head down in disappointment. She looked me square in the eye and just said, "What are you gonna do?" And soon as she told me that she was pregnant, the two things that came into my mind was a real man takes responsibility for himself and his family. A real man knows the difference between making a baby and taking care of one. So I already knew what to do.
Yep.
Now it's just follow through. Now it's just follow through. As well as remembering being in the second grade and having the dream of being a father. So, yeah, he's my son is my son, but he's also my dream. He's my dream come true. And so once, when we found out it was going to be about till September, I was like, well, I know what to do. So now I just went out and got like a bunch of jobs. Went out and got a bunch of jobs. I dropped out of college. Went and got a bunch of jobs, and I just worked them for about 7 months before moving to Canada. And that decision was solidified, but there was a lot of other goofy stuff going on, though.
Talk to us. Like, what did some of your friends say? You were involved in church all along too. What did your church family say? How did those conversations go?
I mean, that was you start to realize who is really in your corner when tough stuff happens. Who's really in your corner? Because it's good to be in your corner when things is all happy-go-lucky, right? But when things get tough, when things are uncertain, who can you really rely on? And I had family members who knew that single-parent kid, right? Abandoned, feeling lonely, feeling alone, feeling isolated, feeling like lower than dirt, telling me that I shouldn't go to Canada to be a father. I shouldn't do it. And then having friends, my influences, my guys, telling me that I shouldn't go. But I knew it was the right thing to go. I knew that for a fact. And the hard part was, one of the hardest parts was the people in the church. They would sit there, look me in the eye, kind of like put their hand on their hip and say, this isn't in God's plans, right? As if they know his plans for my life. What I was hoping for, is someone to say, can I pray for you? Is there something that you need? You know you can call me, right? That's what I was looking for, but instead I got criticism. And which drove a wedge. But it also illuminated the ones who I can really depend on.
Yeah. I want to segue us into the second part of what we really want to get to here. But I want you guys to know, I mean this, I really want you to know too, your friendship inspires me, man. If more men had the courage to be men like God, men like Jesus, and do what's right when it's hard, I mean, this world would be a way better place if more dads, loved their wife like you love yours and loved their kids like I see how you love yours. It'd be a better place. You inspire me, man. Like, I look up to you when I watch you, and that's why I wanted to have you. Like, I look up to you when I see you being that man who is a real man, like Brother Jeff Hurd told you and taught you.
Yeah.
And so something that you and me have talked a lot about is the significance of legacy and why legacy matters. I've heard you say things like, well, legacy's not about you. It's actually about others. Talk to me about legacy. Talk to us about others and what that is all about.
Well, to me, legacy is about others because some of the greatest people we've ever known are all servers. Every single last one of them. Jesus, one of the greatest servers, the greatest server. My bad.
He says he forgives you.
I appreciate that. But being the greatest server of all time. And I'm studying people like Gandhi or Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who give their lives because of servanthood. And it's the coolest thing to watch because when you take your eyes off of you and you place them on others, God will take care of you. He'll take care of you because you're taking care of his. Or you're looking out for his, or you're filling a gap that should be filled, and you can be that filler. It doesn't matter how old you are. You don't need to be an adult to do it.
Yeah.
We can all serve wherever we are, and that's the coolest thing. And about legacy is what a lot of people think of legacy is like, what am I leaving behind? It's a business or a house or this or that or money or whatever the case may be. But in my mindset is what I leave in people, because that will live longer than you. Buildings will crumble, but character stays forever.
Yeah.
And so
That's good.
That's something that I want to be able to like put myself into people, because it will be able to stretch further than I will ever go.
Yeah.
And so that's why legacy is really, really important to me, because people are watching.
Yep.
Whether you like it or not.
You had a crisis moment around legacy. I think it was 2008.
Yeah.
With your pa. Tell us that moment and why it hit so hard.
Well, in 2008, I got a call from my mom saying that my grandfather had he has been given his eternal reward, and he was called to heaven. And there's another time I was crying uncontrollably because Pop he was the staple. He was the foundation. He was my everything. He was my everything. And when he passed, it was really tough because I didn't have anyone else I can go to or ask questions to. And so I felt all that stuff of abandonment came rushing back, immediately. And then to make matters even tougher was that within a year, my godfather passed away preaching on the pulpit. As soon as the sermon was done, he had a heart attack and he passed. And now I'm like, now what? Now what? Everyone that poured into me, I was like, I need you. I'm a new father. Like, I need you. I had just, my son was 2 years old at the time. Like, I needed them more than ever, and it felt like they were just ripped from me. And that abandonment, that loneliness, just came right back like a ton of bricks. But the thing, when we talk about legacy, the things that they put in me, I refuse to let that die with me. I couldn't let that happen. And so that was also a journey going through that. But yeah, that was a massive, massive blow. And, moving from there, the worst day, I would say for about a decade, for me, every year was Father's Day. I hated Father's Day. Even as a father, I couldn't stand it. I didn't want gifts. I didn't want cards. I didn't want the macaroni ties. I didn't want none of that stuff. I didn't want any of that stuff.
Yeah.
But my kids would literally sit there watching me, that wanted to honor me and bless me and love me, and they would see me staying in the house, weeping on the bed, randomly curled up in a ball, crying, and my wife kind of slapped me around. You need your wife who can slap you around every once and again, and she's like, you need to figure out how to work this out because your kids want to love you, and you're not allowing them to. They want to honor you the way that you honor your father. They want to do that for you, and you're not letting them. And so that was a big turning point, turning point for me, because I remember someone in the family walking up to me. It was my aunt. She walked up to me and she said, "Daddy passed you the torch." And I was like, huh? That's a heavy load when I feel like Grandpa to me was Superman. And he passes you the torch. It's like you can either do one or two things: put it down or run. So I started to crawl.
That line, that legacy is not what you leave behind; it's what you leave in someone. That's gold, man. And you've done that. Like I've experienced. You're leaving you're leaving Jeff's legacy in me, even. I see it in your kids. I know you're leaving it in them. I see it in many others around. And so you're doing well.
I appreciate that.
Let's wrap up with this. A couple quick thoughts.
Okay.
Anybody maybe here, perhaps tuning in, online, someone that's feeling alone, abandoned, in this season, maybe even isolated, what would you share? What would you pass on to them? How would you want to encourage them today?
I would look them square in the eye, especially if they're like a kid, a young man or a young lady feeling alone or abandoned or any of those things. I would look them square in the eye and say that you're not invisible. Because that's how I felt. Yeah. You're not invisible. You're loved. You're believed in. People recognize you. But we also need to have elders reach out to us, because sometimes we can't verbally get that across when you're young. But I would let them know that I've changed my mindset when I felt like alone. I've changed that to isolated.
Okay. Unpack that.
Well, if you read the Word, you've read it before.
Once or twice.
Every person that God has had a distinct relationship with was isolated. Even his disciples, he would pull them away from the crowd so that the distractions are away and I can talk to you. And that was something that when I changed my mindset, I was like, I was isolated all this time. I just didn't have the maturity to listen. Because I've heard said before, it takes a kid 2 years to learn how to talk. Takes an adult his entire life to listen, to learn how to listen. And that's what I would tell a young person. You're not alone. You're being isolated, and we need to listen, because that was something my mom taught me. Was when you pray, first step is to pray and be specific with your prayers. The second thing you do is shut up, because you can't listen while you're talking.
Yeah.
You can't listen while you're scrolling. You can't listen while you're, just keeping distractions around, just trying to keep yourself and your mind busy. You need time to be quiet and know that He's God.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, because I had my moment when, I remember being quiet, and when I felt alone and things like that, I remember hearing hearing Him specifically say, "My son." And I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, to know that I belong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they do.
Okay, last one. I got one more real quick. If there's maybe someone here watching, whatever, that just hasn't really been given much thought to legacy, given much thought about not what they're leaving behind, but what they're leaving in someone, what would you kind of wrap up to them? What would you want to encourage them with?
I would let them know that your legacy has already begun. It began at birth. We're all guided in one way, shape, or another, guided or misguided. But now, as you know that you have a legacy that you're going to leave behind a legacy. Now you get to be specific on what kind you want to leave behind.
Yeah, it could be a good one or a bad one.
Yeah, it's the choice is now yours. You can either carry all that baggage with you, or you can look behind and say, look what I overcame. That's what I choose to look at and go, wow, look what I overcame, and that's what gives me strength to take it to the next day, the next week, the next year. I think a lot of people look back and they go, look at all the failures I've had, look at all the mishaps, look at all the mess that I've made, or you can look back and say, look what God's brought me through, because He brought me through a whole lot. Like, an inner city kid from the hood marries a girl from Wetaskiwin. Picture that. like, figure that out. You know what I mean? But God doesn't do anything on accident.
Yeah.
That's why I don't like when people say God works in mysterious ways. Like, I think He has this planned. He's had this plan for a long time. It's mysterious to you because you ain't God.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I would let people know that
they're capable. Like, it's in them.
Yeah. And to know that you have, like, if you have the Bible, you literally have a cheat sheet. Literally. Because I believe every single last word that is in that book, and I believe that God loves me just as much as He loved every person in that book. And that's what gives me strength to know that God don't make average.
Yeah.
He never has, and He never will.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming. Thanks for sharing your story, for challenging us to press into whatever we're facing today, whether it's abandonment or not, but challenging us to consider our legacy and what we want to leave in someone. That's a powerful thought. I think every one of us, regardless if you're from Wetaskiwin or the hood.
That's right.
That lands, man. So thank you.
That's very true.
For that. Let me wrap up by just praying for the folks here online and for you, all right?
Absolutely.
Holy Papa, you really do love us. So much so you gave Jesus. Jesus, you yourself said you did not come to be served, but to serve. You are the greatest servant. And this really just speaks to the level and the impact of your leadership that we still live in light of today. Thank you for this love and this model for us. Thank you for our brother, LaRonn, just sharing and challenging us today. May we each chew on this and consider No matter where we've come from, what we've been through, the hurt and the pain, we know you can use it, you can redeem that, you can leverage that we might be people who leave powerful and positive legacies in others. And for the fellowship here and anyone who may be watching, I just pray over them, Lord God. I pray that your Spirit might fall, your Spirit might convict, that your Spirit might challenge, that your Spirit might move, that more and more each one might be men and women of faith, men and women of God who love and live just like you did, Jesus. So thank you for this time. We just seal it in your name and pray your blessing on it. Amen.
Amen. Great is thy faithfulness, O God, my Father. There is no shadow of turning with thee. Thou changest not, thy compassion, they fail not, as thou hast been, and forever will be. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand has provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Summer and winter, springtime and harvest, sun, moon, and stars in their courses above, join with all nature in manifold witness to thy great faithfulness, mercy, and love. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see, and all I have needed, thy hand has provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrow well with my soul. With my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul. My sin, know the bliss of this glorious dawn. My sin, not in part, but the whole, is nailed to the cross, and I bear it no more. Praise the Lord, praise the Lord, oh my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul. With my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul. And Lord, has the day when the faith shall be sight, the clouds be rolled back like a scroll. The trump shall resound, and the Lord shall descend. Even so, it is well with my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul. With my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul. Jesus, you do what you do. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that
Thank you so much for joining us today. If something that you heard during the service sparked something in your heart or in your mind and you would like to talk to someone about it, we would love to be available for that. You can head on over to our website, fortsaskalliance.com, go to our About page, hit the staff link, and you can email any of our staff members through that web page, and we would love to be in touch in whatever way you're most comfortable with, whether that's a phone call, heading out for a coffee, doing a Zoom. We would love to connect with you. And if you have questions about who Jesus is, we've talked about God as our Heavenly Father. If you want Him to be your Heavenly Father, if you want to invite Him into your life and trade your sorrows and your burdens for His joy, again, we would love to talk you through that as well. And so that's the same process. Just get a hold of us through our website. We would love to meet with you to talk more about that. If you feel ready to take that step today, when we close in just a moment here, I'm going to lead you through a prayer so that you can do that. But we just want to say thank you for joining us. We love you. Jesus loves you, and He longs to know you and to walk with you day by day. So let's pray together. Heavenly Father, Lord, I thank you for the message that we heard today, how it's a real message, one that shares pain. Lord, but that it's a message full of hope because we know that you see us and that you know us. Lord, and if there's someone who is listening today who has decided that they want to partner with you, that they want you to be the Lord of their life, Lord, and they're ready to just take that step, I know that you see them and I know that you know them. And friend, if that's you, what you need to do is just say, Jesus, I recognize that I'm a sinner, that I'm broken, that I need you. Jesus, I invite you to be the Lord of my life. I pray that you would forgive me for my sin, that you would take it, that you'd wash me white as snow, and that you'd make me new. Jesus, I surrender everything I am to you. Thank you for saving me. And Lord, I pray that you would bless each person who has tuned in today. God, that you would show us just how great you are, that you're everything that we need, Lord. That you are so good and that you're so kind. In Jesus' name, amen. If you prayed that prayer today, we want to know about it. So again, get in touch with us, and we would love to chat with you more about that. Thanks so much for joining us, and just have a great week ahead.